Hey guys! So, this is the first video of 2018 and today we will be painting bell peppers. So, I've prepared the colors. You can see them here on this dish, and for these bell peppers we will be using a palette of different reds and yellows. So, to create a more pleasant and more harmonious picture, we will be using cool colors. There we go. Cool colors for the lights and highlights, and some warmer colors for the shadows. So you will find this reference photo on Pixabay. I will leave the link in the description. So let's start drawing. I'm using a Carbothello pastel pencil for this, so just to sketch out where my pencils are roughly going to be on the paper. And for the paper I'm using sandpaper. I think this is a 1000 grits of paper at home. No, this is a 600, but if you use 1000 is also fine. So I'll be using also the kneaded eraser. It's very nice when you need to pick up pastel from any kind of paper. It doesn't damage the tooth of the paper and you can have a cleaner look. So what I'm going to start is I will go through the colors fast with you. So I have a very light blues, a purple, also light. Then I'm going to cool reds. This is a pinkish red, a warm red that is going darker, and then a very dark red. Going through violets, and I'm going to go into the brown, and I have a black as well because I'm not sure if these colors will be dark enough. And for the yellows, I have a very light yellow, and then I'm going through cooler colors into the warmer colors, again into the yellows, and then these are ochre colors, and we're going to the brown as well. So the first thing I do with any still life, anything that I'm drawing, I want to map in my objects. So I'm looking at the general shape of my objects and I want to map them in on the paper. So this pepper has a very nice lean to it, and I'm going to keep that. So this is one pepper, and the other one I can see now that it's slightly lower, so around here. I'm making them angular, the images at the moment, because it's easier like that to continue drawing the real shapes. And I see that I gone too few here. Need to make it a bit wider. And this pepper goes like that. So now we have the shapes in place, and now we can add some more detail before we start with the pastels. And I'm starting by drawing out these kind of ribs of the pepper. I'm not worrying about the stalk at the moment, because when you're drawing on the sandpaper or on any paper that has this grit to it, it's very easy to go over the color that you put, and you don't have to erase anything. So here I have this part and one more here. So here for myself I can just put in these ribs so that I know where they are, and I will put also the highlight where the highlight is so that I can see it and I don't lose it when I'm drawing. Okay, and now the stalk. You can see that there's this bit where it connects to the pepper, and it goes almost until here. And not drawing out too detailed. This is perfectly enough for me for now. Now this pepper, I'm making it more rounded. Remember, it doesn't have to be perfectly round. Nothing has to be perfect. The more imperfections, the more interesting your image is going to be. So this is the second pepper, and it has this kind of 5-angle shape here. And here we have these divisions and the highlight. And you can see that these highlights on the yellow are not as bright as the highlights on red. So this is it for my initial drawing. Now I can start with the colors. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to start with my mid-tone value for my red pepper, and I'm going to go all over the area where I see the true value of my pepper. This is a very pleasant color to work with. And notice how I'm putting all the strokes in the direction of the growth of the pepper. So I'm going here. I'm kind of caressing it the way it grows. Here. Also on that bit. It's okay if you go over the lines, we can always correct it. A bit here. So now I'm gonna go to my cooler red and add it to the bits around the highlights and where I have those reflections. And one thing that I forgot to add is a cool yellow, cool pink. This is going to be fine. So this is going to be our highlighted areas with the reflections of the color. So now I'm just mopping in the color of the actual tone of the pepper, just mapping in where everything is going to be. So we're going to darken up this red, this pink that I'm using now. So there are a bit of reflections here. I'm going to use the purple to darken it up a bit. And at the same time it cools it down also, because we have cooler lights. Adding it around the reflection. And now I can go in with this darker red. And I'm covering all the area of the pepper here. So now we can blend this in a bit, and then we will continue looking at how we add colors. Again, I'm working in the direction of the growth of the pepper. So I like leaving pastel marks unblended also, and I will be adding them as subsequent layers to the pepper. Now that we have it blended, you can already see that the shape is starting to emerge from there. I'm going to clean my hands. And what I'm going to do now is I'm going to add more colors to my pepper. So I think this pink that I chose is a bit too bright, so I'm going to dull it down with this pink that we used for highlights. So, and I'm going over the areas where I see that highlight, the reflected light that comes off of the surroundings on the pepper. So we can see that it's lighter here, and also it's lighter here. Then by the stalk on this side. There's this bit that is lighter, but I'm gonna add this purple to it, and also some violet, the one that I had here. So this is gonna be the lighter part. So we have our lights that are cool, and the shadows will be warmer. Here we're gonna add a bit of yellow into the reflected light because of the bell pepper that is on this side. So now for the highlight, I'm gonna use a blue and add a bit of blue here as the reflected light, and this is going to be my highlight. So we have also some reflected light here. Gonna make it also violet. Rub it in. And again on this side. And here we're going to add the yellow, orange or yellow. As it will be reflected from the pepper that's next to it. And we go into the darker yellows here. This part is more in the shadow. So now I'm going back to my red, and I'm gonna intensify this red where I've lost it. So now I'm regaining that red that I lost. Because I lost the shape here in the back. Now I can go in with my darker red and add more definition here. Pull this away. I'm just gently rubbing it in so as not to create these unwanted kind of texture look. And here we have also a darker part that's going to give us the impression of the pepper folding. And here on the edge as well. Now I'm going to go into the darker browns, and I'm adding those darker browns here on the edge where I see it. And then we're going to add it here as well on this side. And then we can rub it in. So as we have the pepper, as this texture of the pepper is very smooth, this work can be completely done with the rubbing technique, but then it won't look as interesting. So here we have the brown also. And as I said, we have light that is in cool shades. I can go into this also, make it a bit darker. And so we have lights that are in cool shades of blue. We can even add a bit of more blue here. And let's not lose these highlights. Just pat them down a bit. Need a bit of dark red here to fix the shape of the pepper. And also I can use a slightly lighter brown than I used here in the shadows, just to give it a bit of a kick, to darken it up. So I love how the colors they mix on this surface, on this gritty paper, and it just looks amazing. And we are going to add some darker bits here just on the fold to create that illusion of the bell pepper folding in. Okay, now we need to darken it up even more. And here I'm going to go in with the black. So even if I'm using black here for my darkest darks, it's still not going to be completely black because it's going to mix in with the colors underneath. So I'm using the black to give it that additional depth. So, and pay attention how the pepper consists of these parts. Darken it up a bit, of these sections. So I have to say I'm sorry for this camera. I still haven't got a good setup. Still, it's a temporary place where I'm staying in the Airbnb. But anyway, let's get back to drawing. So we have this part of the bell pepper, darker. I'm going with my browns now. And here I'm gonna go in with the cold dark red. And again, browns here and black. So this is a very dark part of the bell pepper, and we're going to keep it that way. So the darker and the lighter you kind of go. So when there's a difference between your lightest lightest values and your darkest darks, the more visually pleasing it's going to be, the picture that you're painting. Here we keep that red because I like how it kind of folds in. Just gonna clean my hands because my hands are getting too dirty, and making sure that they're clean, and at the same time I'm making sure that they are dry, because the last thing you want is going to the paper with your wet hands. So there we go. We are creating the depth of this pepper, and now I'm gonna add some color pinks here. Kind of creates that illusion of light and the shape bending, and some pink, and rub it in. I'm going to take away this black. If I rub it, it's just going to lift off. And I need to add this reflected light here. We're going to use the light blue. I'm constantly losing it as I'm going back and forth. So this is the reflected light on this side, the reflected light on this side as well. That's what's going to give the bell pepper the shape. So with pastels, it's kind of going, for me at least, it's kind of balancing back and forth between these lights and darks. Here there is a bit, and another part here. So I'm just drawing in those shapes as I see them. And I think I got this highlight a bit too low. I'm gonna lift it up a bit. Here we can darken it up. There we go. How better. Just blending it on the outer edge. And here I'm gonna add the red. The cleanish finger. Just adding the red. Creating that kind of illusion of highlighted area. Adding some red into this black just to create a smoother transition. So by the end of the day you can see that the red bell pepper is not that red at all, depending on the light conditions that you have. There's a bit of reflected light here. It's going to be a bit lighter, just slightly. So here we go. I'm just blending it in very smoothly. I'm just going to add my light blues here, where I kind of lost them. So that's going to give the idea of the shape to the pepper. So there we go, that's one pepper done. Now we're going to the yellow one. And here I lost a bit of my yellow, kind of brighter yellow color, which I really need, as it's a reflected light here. Can add it here, and also here a bit, and the darker yellow again as we did. Add it here. We need to darken it up with the brown. So this gives us the idea that these two peppers are next to each other, and with the black we're going to add a bit more darkness here on the edge, because it's the darkest point. Just blend it in slightly so it's not just a line. And also this edge is quite dark here. There we go. This already starts to look like a normal pepper. So now we're going to continue with the yellow pepper. My reference escaped somewhere. Now I'm going to clean my hands, get them dry. Just fix here just a little bit. Okay, so now we can go to the yellow pepper, and basically we do the same thing. We start with the mid-tone value. So this is the value of my pepper that is right between the very light and very dark parts. I'm just mapping out the areas. It's okay if we go over things here, because we can always pass over with our other colors. It's worse that if you don't cover an area, then it kind of can be, you will have to redo that part and add the color that you need. But it's better to, on this kind of paper, it's better to cover the areas that you need with the color, even if it means that you cover, for example, here I covered the part of the stalk. I can always take it off with the kneaded eraser, for example, or I can just cover it over with my pastel. So now I'm taking a cooler yellow. So this was quite a warm orangey yellow, and with a cooler yellow I'm starting to see where my lighter areas are going to be. So this is the lightest part of this rib of the pepper, and then just a bit here. So I see the light on this part here and right by the stalk, and just a bit here. Now with an even lighter yellow, this kind of paper is awesome because these are Rembrandts and they are very, very cool to use on sanded surfaces. And now, this is not light enough. They always leave a mark where you need it. So this is going to be my lighter parts where the highlight is. And then I will be making it also blue, like here in this pepper. So for now that is it. I'm gonna go in with the darker. And what I could use also is, this is the darker ochre color. You can see that it's already starting to get shape. What I could use to give it more life to this pepper, I could use also something orange. Now I'm gonna finish with this one, and then we're gonna add something orange to it as well, just to give it more life. Here I went a bit out of the margin of the pepper, but it's fine. So I'm gonna take my orange. This is kind of a dusty orange, but it's gonna add that kick to the pepper, just in some places where I see it. And of course here on this side we're gonna have orange reflected from the red. We can even put in our red in it. I'm gonna take the red, I'm gonna add some red on this side of the pepper. Taking the darker brown, adding the darker parts, which then we will subsequently darken a bit more. So now you can see this is kind of the ugly stage of the pepper. Now that we start blending it all out, you will see how it's going to change dramatically, and it's going to be a beautiful rounded pepper. Okay, so now we can start blending. I'm blending from the lighter part into the darker one, and I'm trying to follow the shape. So this is kind of a very rounded shape here. Trying not to get in, cleaning my hands because dirtying the pepper. Trying not to drag the darks into the lights and vice versa. And here I'm kind of going into the pepper itself, inside. Taking a clean finger again. Blending these colors together. Here I dirtied it a bit, but it's okay, we can always fix it. So I'm gonna clean the fingers again. Trying all of my fingers to get the cleanest ones. So, okay, so now we have the darks in place. And now we can start adding the lights back in. So we lost completely all this color, so I'm gonna start adding it back in. I'm rubbing it in. And the same way goes here. And when you might have noticed that when you rub it in, you can apply more color. So when you rub in the layers that you've put up until now, you can apply more color onto the pepper. So this layer, I'm not rubbing it in so much, I'm just patting it down just to get it into the paper. So now we're gonna add the very light parts. So these are the reflected lights. And there's kind of a movement that goes like this. And also here. So it's like sculpting in a way. You're creating the illusion of the shape. Now I'm gonna go in with my brown. This is another brown. It's kind of a redder brown, which fits in perfectly well. I'm gonna clean my hands because I'm dragging too much yellow around. And this is going to give us the illusion of depth, the shadows. Cleaning my hands. There we go. It's darker here under the stalk. And also here we go in. looking at the shape of this shadow bit here. Okay, so this I like it for now. Cleaning my hands, and now we have to go a bit darker than that. So I'm gonna take my brown, the same one that I used for my red pepper, and this one I'm gonna add more sparingly. Very slightly rubbing it in just to blend it in just a bit. There we go. So this is going to give us the impression of the shape. This is like sculpting, creating a 3D shape. And what I would like to do is add more orange into here. Gonna mix it up together with these colors. That's gonna give it more interesting color. With a nicer transition into this yellow. Moving into the yellow again. With the blue, we're gonna create this reflected light over the yellow. Don't worry, so I'm gonna make green. And here we can go with the blue to create the highlight. The same way we're gonna do here. And also in this highlight there. Later parts. There we go. And these marks, I actually kind of like them, so I'm gonna leave them as they are without blending. Just this bit of it, it's just too stark, the line here. There we go. And I'm gonna darken up this area here. So this really is dark. So all this bit is gonna be very dark. A bit of orange just here and there. There's orange here, I see it. just a bit of black to darken it up even more. Could also use a very dark purple here, it would look good. Okay, and now the thing that we're lacking here is dark enough. I think it's dark enough, but we are lacking the reflected light over here, and just a bit of clean my hands. This shape, I don't like how it looks here. We need a bit of this yellow, even darker yellow. To curl it in. And I will add also some lemony bits here. Gently rub it in. Here on the highlight. Darken in this part a bit because it's where the stalk grows out from, so it's going to be darker. And now I'm going to take the red, dark red that I had, and add it here. I can even see this orange forming here on the edge. And also some will be reflected of this side. Just gonna go over these shadows a bit more. I'm not particularly happy with them. Just a bit more. And there's just a bit of a hint of a shadow here where the form is curling away from us. Okay, with the darker one, just adding a bit more darkness, lost it. There we go. So this is the second pepper that we did. Just adding a bit more darkness here over the red. And some orange here in between the light and the shadow. So I'm constantly looking where I need to darken it up and where I need to have some lighter bits just to make it seem more real. Strangely enough, I've learned that realism is not as difficult as expressive painting, so we're done with this part. I think we're good here. Just gonna add, I still don't like how yellow it looks. It needs more yellow on this pepper. Yellow and orange here. So there we go. So we have the reflected light from both of them on each other. Now we can clean up the contours with a kneaded eraser so that they look more neat. Sorry for the shaky table, that my camera is shaking. And now what we would need to do is add some shadows. So first I'm going to clean it up. There we go. And here I'm gonna darken this bit up because I didn't manage to pick up as much. It's really dark this side. It has to be dark, otherwise it's not gonna look right. Okay, so now we need to add shadows, and to do that I'm gonna use this dark crayon and mix it in with black. I actually can use a dark violet as well, which is gonna look amazing. Let me check if I have a dark violet. I think that this one is gonna look pretty good. Let's try. Yes, this is gonna look very interesting. I'm gonna add a bit of this violet here, creating this shape just to correct it a bit. So think negative shapes, negative spaces. I'm going to add a bit of this violet around the peppers. Be very careful not to go onto the pepper itself. So this is kind of a dusty violet. And then we will finish off with the stalks after we're done creating the silhouette for the peppers. It's especially good in these areas with this yellow because this paper is quite dark, and the yellow, if it's not neat, it's going to look very amateurish. So whenever you, whatever it is you're doing, just try to be as neat as possible. It would be also interesting to see another tone in the background, for example, another hue, not purple. I chose purple because it kind of ties in the two peppers together, because red, it's mixed in with the blues, it creates purple, so it actually contains red in it, and yellow, it's the complement of purple. So I'm going to create this right here very carefully. So now we have that there. Going to add the shadow underneath. Actually make it darker here. Have my hands dirty, need to clean them up. Making sure that I get the shadow right, because the shadow is essential to your shape. You won't get the shape right if the shadow is falling incorrectly. So the only thing that I'm actually blending now is the shadow bit. Because I want to leave the background as dark as it is. Just add a bit of the darker color over the purple just to tone it down a bit. Just rub it off a bit. actually not liking it particularly. Let's cover it up with the purple. There, much better. Looked dirty otherwise. There we go, and we have a perfect shape. So here we're gonna make it a bit more denser so that it actually envelops the pepper. I'm gonna add some black here at the very edges of the bell pepper. So it's the darkest part of the shadow. So that's the darkest part of our shadow. And we're going all the way around here. So I really like how dark this image looked. And here you can't even discern the shape of the pepper anymore for how dark it is. There we go. So we have the two peppers. Now all that's left to do is the stalks. And here I don't like how light it looks on that side. So I'm going to add a bit more darkness to it. So this side it looks too light otherwise. I'm going to rub it in to create that smooth pepper feel. There we go. So I really like how it looks now. Next thing we do, we need greens. So my greens, I can show you how I keep them. So I have a separate box only for my greens. I have so many greens. I will show you how I keep my greens. So this is my separate box only for my greens and grays. Okay, so for my greens, I see them quite dark on the left side. So I'm going to start with the dark part. Actually, this is too light for the darks, so I'm going to just go in and cover all the area of the stalk. You can see how easy it covers over the existing layers. The same, not to put away the color I'm gonna do here. What I like about food illustration or like food drawings is creating this kind of broken look, that in a way that it's not as smooth. The stalks and like pits and stuff like that, they're not as smooth as the fruit or the vegetables themselves. So I'll show you what I mean by that. I need a very dark green. Actually, I can use even I think this one is going to do the trick. Yes, in fact it does. So I'm just gonna add the darkness to this side. And also we have very dark. This is a unison one. It's crumbly if you press too much on it. I think I might need to go in with my black as well. There we go. So for the lighter parts, I'm gonna go in with cooler greens. So I'm gonna go in with this kind of veggie green, hoping that it's not too bright, and then I'm gonna dial it down a bit. Make it thicker here. And again, we need to look at the reflected light. Just gonna blend it very smoothly, but I'm gonna keep it as a rougher image, a rougher kind of drawing than pepper itself. And this is a lighter green. Again, I'm just gonna dab it in so that we can have this kind of the ability to add more colors to it. And I'm gonna take a very light green. This is not white, it's very soft light green. And I'm going in here and I'm adding these highlights. So you can see it brings out the pepper immediately. And again here the same way. And here I will have to darken it up because I don't like how light it looks. So I'll take my black and add this edge, some darker parts here, and just dab it in, and you can see that it mixes in with the green and creates the illusion of darker color. And also here at the tip, this edge is darker, so it kind of curls in, and we're going to darken it up a bit here as well. There, and now what is lacking is the red reflection on the stock thing here. So I'm gonna go in with my red and add it. I'm gonna actually fix the shape as well now a bit with the purple. So you can see because of the red, we have this reflected light that kind of bounces off. And now with the dark purple, I'm gonna correct the shape of the pepper itself, of the stalk itself. So don't be afraid to go out of the borders, we can always correct it. And I think that we are actually done. So these are my 2 peppers. I hope you like them. All that's left is to sign a name. So I'm gonna sign mine. And I hope that you really enjoyed this lesson and that I will see you soon in other videos. So Happy New Year! This is the first video of this new year and I hope that's been really, really useful for you. I will see you in my other videos and in the next video very, very soon. Bye guys!